So, what's the difference between content creators and influencers? Content creators are people who make their income online by developing content no matter the format. So, that can be audio, video, text, it doesn't matter. They don't necessarily have a following. Their main focus is creating high quality content for brands. The value of working with content creators or UGC creators, which stands for user generated content, is that they're more in tune with what performs well and are skilled at creating content that is engaging. Influencers typically have a personal brand that's associated with them. The most important point of differentiation between content creators and influencers is that influencers typically have a following that you expect to reach through working with them. Influencers are also content creators, but content creators are not influencers. There are different types of creators you can work with depending on your partnership goals. So it's always a good idea to tailor your partnerships based on the specific outcomes you're trying to achieve through that campaign. When planning your collaborations, take a look at your marketing funnel and see where this collaboration fits in. Is this a campaign that's top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel? Top of funnel campaigns are all about building awareness. Middle of funnel campaigns are about targeting that consideration piece. So educating your consumers on how you can solve their problem better than anybody else to influence their decision making. Bottom of funnel campaigns are all about driving conversions, which means influencing your audience to take some sort of action, whether that's visiting your website or making a purchase. Most creators are really good at generating awareness, which makes them a really good fit for top of the funnel campaigns. Despite popular belief, many influencers are not very good at selling to their audience. When looking for influencers to create content for your bottom of funnel campaigns, there's a few things that you should look out for to see if they would be a good fit. So first, check to see how often the influencer is promoting products or services on their page. If that influencer is continuously selling, their audience is most likely primed to buy from them. You can see if that influencer is good at selling if they have a lot of links on their page, if they have a lot of previous brand partnerships with affiliate links and codes, and if they have a link in bio on their page that leads to some of their other partnerships. If you're looking to work with influencers for your bottom of funnel campaigns, consider a long-term partnership. We'll talk about some of the benefits of a long-term influencer collaboration later on in this episode. So now that you've identified the difference between content creators and influencers and the different types of influencers, how do you budget for those campaigns? For creator partnerships, there's different factors that will influence price. Content creators are typically more cost-effective than influencers because you don't expect to tap into their audience. When working with content creators, there may be additional rates associated with using their content as ads or white labeling the content, which is removing visible credit. For influencers, the biggest factor that will dictate price is their following size. There are nano creators, which are between 1,000 and 10,000 followers, micro creators, which are between 10,000 and 100,000 followers, mid-tier creators between 100,000 and 500,000 followers, macro creators, which are between 500,000 followers and 1 million followers, and mega creators, which have a following over 1 million. I've seen some price breakdown reports online that provide the median cost for working with different sized creators, but I have not found those to be accurate. There are so many factors that also influence price beyond just the size of their following. Many influencers will actually change their rates based on the size of the company that's reaching out to them. If a smaller brand approaches them and they have the availability to take them on, they may offer a lower rate than if a larger brand were to approach them. The rate of the partnership can also vary depending on the requirements for the collaboration. And specific influencers will have certain characteristics or traits that naturally make them charge more. In summary, if you're putting together your first influencer partnership, I would recommend you to reach out to multiple influencers of multiple sizes and see how their rates compare. You can then decide how that fits into your overall budget. Finally, a few other things that can dictate price when working with influencers are things like getting them to add a link in bio, an exclusivity clause that doesn't allow them to work with your competitors during the same time frame, or even just being able to boost the post as an ad. You're going to have to put aside a separate budget in addition to your ad spend. So if you're looking to work with some content creators or influencers, here are some best practices. Start off by reaching out asking for their rate card and media kit. In that email, specify if you're looking to do a free or paid collaboration. When you get their media kit, if you're working with a content creator, make sure that they've created content for similar brands with similar audiences. If you're looking at an influencer, make sure that their audience demographics are in line with yours so that you're actually reaching your target audience. If you see high reach but an overall lower engagement, it may mean that they're boosting a lot of posts. If you see an abnormally high engagement rate, they may be buying likes and followers. So take a look at other posts and see who specifically are engaging and following them. This happens a lot more often than you may think. Then, when you decide which influencers you want to work with, send over a creative brief. Your creative brief should include any key messages you want the influencer to speak about, the timeline and key deadlines for the collaboration, any content requirements, so format, what platform you want them to post on, and any usage rights and permissions. So if you want to be able to also post that on your website, make sure that that's clear in your creative brief. You can also include your budget for working with that influencer in the creative brief, which can spark some negotiation early on. When drafting your creative brief, it's always a good idea to give the content creator some free rein on the actual content that they produce. They're the most in tune with what content performs best with their audience or audiences similar to yours, so they'll be able to get some creative ideas that may work well or may work better than what you were anticipating. The last thing that you should keep in mind is that long-term creator partnerships always perform best. Over time, a long-term brand partnership can allow the influencer to develop a relationship and actual interest in your brand. This authenticity is crucial for building trust with their audience. It's very apparent when an influencer is actually in love with the brand that they're talking about. Also, when an influencer works with your brand over a longer, extended period of time, they gain a better understanding of your brand, your services, or your products. This makes it easier for them to convince to their audience that your brand is better than any other competitor. Long-term partnerships can also be more cost-advantageous. You can negotiate a better rate for multiple videos upfront than reaching out to the influencer months down the line when their rates may have gone up. If an influencer also grows throughout that time, you're able to benefit from that increased exposure without having to pay increased costs. So we covered quite a bit today. To recap, we started off by talking about the differences between content creators and influencers. Content creators are people that are very skilled at creating high quality content. Influencers are content creators, but they also have an audience that they speak to. We then talked about choosing the right influencer to fit in your overall marketing funnel. We learned that most content creators are really good for awareness, but only a few influencers are actually really good at converting their followers into buyers. Then we talked about the different factors that influence price and how that can fit into your overall budget. Finally, we covered some best practices for managing creator relationships, like focusing on long-term partnerships, how to reach out to influencers, and what to include in your creative brief. That concludes today's episode. Thank you for listening to Your CMO with Emma Morales, the podcast where I'm obsessed with helping you level up your digital marketing. If you like this episode, please help us reach new listeners by leaving a positive review on the podcast. I can't wait to see you next episode.